Yo, collect and connect. Blake and Chad.
Chad.
And Blake.
Collect
and connect.
Blake and Chad's collect and connect.
Which one? English.
Frank goes Blake and Chad's.
This is
Blake and Chad's.
This is
Collect and connect.
I mean, I'm sure you hear it enough, but we see you've been on Oxygen Network, the Street Art Throwdown.
Yeah.
But really, I'm sure that takes levels to get to those areas. But like, what made you go into even thinking about going into a show? Because it seems like you were doing the murals first, and then at that time it was like 2017 was probably when you were starting your murals, right, on big walls and stuff. Or
Well, my idea was never to go into a show, which is actually funny enough. Growing up, my childhood idol in the painting realm, because like I wasn't cool enough to do graffiti. I wanted to, but like letters wasn't my thing. I didn't grow up in an urban environment. I grew up in a woods environment. So I was an acrylic painter, but the artist Justin Bua, he blended those worlds of seemingly like he did graffiti type stuff, but he did it with acrylic paint. So like, I loved all his work. Like, his posters used to be on my wall as a kid. Like he was like that aha moment of me being like, oh, I could do that, right? I can't do this. Like, I really want to do this, and like graffiti, but like I didn't have those tools or those things at the time. And this was before the years of Montana and everything, right? This was when like all the hardcore graffiti people are still using like Krylon and like carving their own caps. And that's not what I was doing. So he was like the thing that I wanted to be. And then fast forward years later, he ended up posting something on Instagram that said it was an art contest. It didn't say it was a show. So I ended up applying, and they ended up calling me back and saying like, oh, it's a show. And then I turned around and kind of said, no. Truth be told, I don't think they picked me for any sort of talent. I think they picked me because of how I look and because of I was East Coast and they had a lot of West Coast artists at this point. So I essentially think I filled the slot. And then they kind of had to tell me like, you're not living in a house with people. They pitched it as it was like Project Runway for Art. So I was like, okay. And it also wasn't pitched as a graffiti show. So after the show aired and they ended up like editing it and everything, they made it much more like graffiti-ish than it was, because most of the people on the show weren't like, the final 3 people were 1 spray painter and 2 acrylic painters. So that should show you it wasn't really geared like that. But no, I mean, it was great. Like, I have no complaints about it. I like that it wasn't so huge that's why everybody knows me, that it gave me like a foundation to kind of start, and then the rest was up to me. Like, it opened doors, but kind of like I'm down low, you know what I mean? Like, most people don't know that show, which is the nice part. But like, there were huge artists were on there. Like, every episode, the next judge was huge. It was a ton of paint. It was a ton of friends. Like, wasn't a drama show, so they kind of had to fish to like find drama, because it was just like any mural collective that I go on now, just a bunch of artists like hanging out, painting. So it really was like a great time. And I'm still friends with so many of the people from that show.
That's what's up, because you connected with a bunch of people, I'm sure, in there.
Yeah.
Just that experience alone, I'm sure, just is mind blowing. I mean, like, holy crap, just to go out and be recognized, and just to meet those people and collab with them, and like you said, now you're connected with them probably for a lifetime.
I also didn't really. I spray painted before the show, but not on that level. So honestly, it was another very sink or swim situation where they just dropped me amongst like a bunch of spray paint, and I had to learn very quickly. Like, the mural I ended up painting on that show, the final mural, most of it I did with the power sprayer. Like it wasn't even done with spray paint because I didn't have that kind of can control. So I did the whole thing like with that, and then I went in and kind of tightened it up and pretended I knew what I was doing, and then I learned afterwards how to spray paint better.
Still very cool.
Yeah, no, it was great. I don't have nothing to complain about. They flew my mother out. They flew my sister out. Like, I really am. I talk daily to some of those people on that show still. So it was really great.
So what's the biggest wall you painted? Like, what's the biggest mural? I know you did those 2 roses side by side.
Yeah, those were in Israel. Let me see there. I did, tallest or longest? I did a really long wall this summer. I ended up showing up. I had to go paint in Indiana. I have a friend that brings me out to like when I go put like street art where they don't really have access to public art. So one of the things I did was one of the times like I go to Indiana often and we do like a mural run there. And where was this? This was not Crawfordsville.
Well, I wrote it down somewhere.
Oh, let me think.
Is that the Franceville Garden
there.
wall?
Is it Francisville? Oh, they're gonna be so pissed that I don't remember the name. Anyway, I'll remember.
Pretty sure that's it. 'Cause I put
So-
how long is that wall? I was gonna
It was
ask you.
100 and it wasn't so much the length of the wall. So they wanted me to paint an alley, and I knew how this was going to go. I knew that because they were skeptical about street art because they had a mural there that wasn't their favorite. So their concern was like, what if we put another mural here and we don't like it? So once I was there, I understood what their hesitation was, but I also know usually how that happens. If I put it in an alley, there's a strong chance that as soon as I'm done, you're going to be like, why is this in an alley? So they gave me the wall. I had a semi mock-up. I get there. They're like, oh, it's not this side of the alley. It's this side. And the measurements were totally off. And it was an alley. So it was only maybe 10, not even feet. So I couldn't step back. So I had to freehand 135 by 40 feet. I mean, it was like 80 hours. It was nice because I could just kind of zone out, and sometimes usually I have a mock-up and like reference points and all that. I had none of it. There was nowhere I could step back and look. There was nothing. So I just had to kind of like, this was like, now you're here and you have to, I felt like I was back on the show. It was like, now you're here and you have to figure this out.
Freestyle it.
I mean, it turned out beautiful. It really did. But it was, about 80 hours. I don't even know how many. And that's on top of, we probably went through 15 gallons of paint to buff it first. And then I had to, because it was a color fade, I had to blend all the colors together. It was also a very serious course on like color theory, because you would think like it showed me what colors like I had to blend to get to the next color, and they're not always the colors that you would think. Like it's not like, oh, you just go yellow to orange, you know what I mean? There had to be pinks involved and stuff. So it was, but I mean, they're all fun and they're all a challenge, and I never leave a wall until like I'm satisfied. So that definitely was a long one. But tall wise, those ones in Israel, those were 5 stories. Those were tricky because I couldn't really move my lift a certain situation, and I couldn't understand anybody because I was in Israel, and they were mirror images of each other. But there's been some big ones. There was another one in Rensselaer that was 80 feet by 40 feet. But like after a certain amount of time, it's all the same. To be honest, like after 30 feet, like it's.
Were you scared of heights before you started those?
No, but that goes back to how I grew up, like climbing trees and stuff like that. No, I don't have that luck. Thank God. I don't have that.
Is there a specific place that you'd like to paint a mural that you haven't yet? Even like country, city?
I have walls in Manhattan, but I feel like, what's that? The Bowery Wall in Manhattan is like the big, you know what I mean? I feel like that's the like you made it wall for street artists and graffiti artists. So that one would be cool. But no, I mean, I guess I'm still early, so I'm still like chipping away at other places to go paint. And I'm always super grateful whenever I'm invited to go paint places, but I've luckily painted some really great ones. Like I've painted I painted the World Trade Center. I did the Macy's window. I did the Super Bowl, even though I'm not into sports, but that was like a cool thing to do. I painted some cool ones.
I was aware with the one at the World Trade Center.
The one at the World Trade Center was, I don't want to say heavy, but you definitely were aware of where you were the entire time. You know, it was a different kind of feel as opposed to the other ones. Like it was fun, but you were aware of what it was. So you kind of wanted to paint. I painted a Statue of Liberty hand holding the Liberty torch on like the 69th floor of Tower. I forget which one. It was beautiful, the place, but it was definitely, like there was a solemn tone to it. Mm-hmm. And that was actually talking about scared of heights. So that those buildings sway in the wind, and it was a snowstorm, and I was up against the glass, and I felt it shift. And for the first time in my life, I got that feeling in my stomach that like, whoa, this is what being scared of heights was. And like that's the feeling where you want to sit down. And I was like, it made me empathize with like people who are actually scared of heights, because I was like, I did not like how that felt at all. But the building was beautiful. The whole place was really nice, but heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Valerie, maybe. I guess all over. I'd kind of like to have my mark, all over, wherever I can get it.
Heck yeah.